So the personal year cycle, again, it's like knowing the theme to your party. I always like to say that you don't want to show up at the wrong party in the wrong outfit for the entire year. And literally, what I also have come to remind myself and remind people is that numerology isn't just words, right? It's not just theory. It actually is energy. It is what we are feeling and experiencing throughout the year. So when we know what the supportive energy is for us for each year, what those thematics are, we can move with it actually, and move with the energy and actually have it help us rather than hinder us. And then we can also really understand what is going on in terms of the opposing forces, or what's not really being supported during the year. So once again, this is a 9-year cycle from birth to death, and it's understanding that supportive energy is really what we're going to be looking at today, and to attempt to understand the obstacles. First and foremost, we learned the calculation, a very easy calculation. So I'm going to go through it very quickly. We're going to use your date of birth. We're using the month and the day. Your year of birth, we're going to put over on the sidebar here for this calculation. Don't need it. What you do need instead is the current year. Also a little sidebar, if you want to know, oh my gosh, what was my personal year in 1999? You just use 1999 as the current year. So you can go back and forth with personal year calculations. And yet for us, we're going to use the current year. So I'm going to give you this example. So let's say your date of birth is November the 8th. The month is November. It's an 11. So it's the 11th month. I'm using this mindfully because sometimes people get into, oh, what about the 11? Or what if it's the 22, those master numbers? In this calculation, the 11 is a master number, so it's not reduced. Otherwise, we would add it together. 1 + 1 = 2. You can do that, but what I consider the most proper way is to not reduce it. So then we'll look at the day. The day is the 8th. That is 8. So no big math going on there. So then we add together, the year is 2022. This is the most difficult math you're going to be doing all day. Okay, so it is 2 + 0 + 2 + 2. That is a 6. So now you're going to add together 11 + 8 + 6. That equals 25. You keep reducing. 2 + 5 = 7. This example, you would have a 7 or be experiencing a 7 personal year in 2022. So people always ask me, well, what about the master numbers? If you read my forecast, you'll know that sometimes I'll say, or I'll often say, if you're in a 2 or a master number 11-2 personal year, or a 4 or a master number 22-4 personal year, people are like, well, how do I know if I'm in that master number? So I'll give you 2 examples quickly here. So a master number example here is December 20th, if that is your birth date. The month is December, that's 1 + 2 = 3. The day is the 20th, 2 + 0 = 2. The year is 2022, that's a 6. Add it together and you get an 11. So 11 is a master number, and so you would understand your personal year to be a 2 with that added dose of the 11 that goes with it. We'll talk about that a little bit during the presentation. This is another master number example. November 23rd, it's 11 + 5 + 6. That equals 22. So 22 is a master number and is not reduced. So you would look at the 4, or think about the 4 more in terms of your personal year, and yet you've got that double dose of the 2, again, that we'll talk about. So I hope that has clarity. If you are indeed wondering if you are in a master number year. So, all right, so let's get going on this. We're obviously starting with personal year 1. So again, we're in a 9-year cycle. One is the beginning. It is Genesis. It is new beginnings, right? So the key elements here are independence, individuality, co-creation, right? Rather than codependencies. So this is a time where often you feel you're really going it alone. It's new starts, new beginnings, and it is. I love this quote from Bruce Springsteen, who is also a one life path. He says, life is like a piece of white, a clean white piece of paper, daring you to write on it. So that's kind of that energy that you have during a one personal year. It is a year of new beginnings and planting new seeds. So I always say the question here is, what do I want to see grow and blossom in the next 9 years, right? So that can be a little daunting. So it's almost like, okay, after this transitional 9 year that we'll talk about in a moment, after that transition, you've cleared things out. And so you're ready for something, this higher up leveling yourself and this higher level of you and what you are doing and what you are becoming. So the goal here is to get clear about this next phase and stage. I always say that it's time to stand on your own 2 feet and begin this entirely new chapter. It's really a high powered year marked by your determination, your initiative. And as you can see by the infographic here, I won't read through every column, but I'll just point an emphasis to, this is all about, usually I find the one personal year is truly focused on career, a little bit more than relationships. It can be a time where a relationship starts as well. And yet it's going to be a time where you're going to be stepping into yourself in all kinds of different ways. And what I mean by that, truly, it's a time marked by independence, individuality, initiation, all the I words. The one is really all about self, learning about the self, learning to define and assert the self in the world. And so what I always want to point out is during our personal year, we're going to be offered experiences, people, things that come into play that are going to allow us to step into this and also challenge us with it. So if you have some codependencies in your personal life, that's going to come up for review and for working on it. This can be a time where you feel those overriding sense of dependencies. It can feel a little bit lonesome or lonely, like all that you're doing, you kind of have to go it alone. So it's time to tap into your creativity, into your leadership capabilities, and all of those things, and things start becoming more clear about what direction you want to be going during this year. So a 2 personal year. The 2 personal year is actually the kind of resting point after this 3-year transition cycle from the 8, 9, and 1, right? And we'll put that more into context. But the 8, I call that 8, 9, 1 cycle a 3-year push time for you. So the 2 personal year is kind of like, oh, okay. I can just kind of breathe for a moment. So the key themes here, and it's energetically set up for you to be more about us rather than me. It's all about love, all about patience and slowing down. It's about right timing. So it's networking, relationships, and emotions. Really understanding your emotional life is part of the 2 personal year. So what I always like to say is this year is kind of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps sideways, 4 steps horizontal. It's kind of one of those years where even if you look at it metaphorically, if you planted all those seeds in your one personal year, it's the year where you are watching that, not only watching them grow, you're tending to those seeds. So it's almost like you're sitting out on the front porch. There's going to be days, even weeks, where you're out weeding, where you're watering, where you're making sure all the conditions are right, you're fertilizing, but there's going to be a lot of times where you're just hanging out. And so what are you going to do when you're hanging out, right? Well, what you're going to do is tend to others. You're going to be working with, if you're single, kind of ready to mingle, this is a time where you can often find a love partnership where you can take time to get to know each other, all of those things. If you're in a relationship, it's time to filter more energy and focus onto that, and to building that and making that a richer experience for both you and your partner. It can be a time where family dynamics come in, and in work and all of that. It's really about true networking and really coming to terms with your tribe. Who do you want to call in to your world on all levels, not only your private world, but your work world as well. This is going to be a time that you feel very emotional, and emotions kind of come into play. It's a time where you're more emotionally sensitive, often a really great year to up level or develop your intuitive capabilities as well. And yet overall, it's a focus on love and relationships. So let's talk briefly, though, about the 11-2 personal year, that 11. I always want to remind you, if you are experiencing a master number, always look at, in this instance, go back and look at the number 1 personal year, kind of double that. And then look at the 2 and go, how's that supposed to work? All of this double initiating, doing, independent, standing on my own 2 feet, taking the lead. And then underneath it are these delays, needing diplomacy, being very emotions-based, being very other-centered. So it's a very interesting mix that you have, and yet extremely powerful. So this is it can be an extremely powerful year for lack of a better term, spiritual illumination. There are often times when this is a time where you really get some incredible downloads from the universe, and however that shows up for you. This can be a time of very important projects coming to fruition, but again, they all don't land exactly as you think they should or might, timing wise. And it's a really important year for where you can put higher ideas and ideals into practice. Really start practicing your emotional intelligence during an 11-2 personal year as well. So the three personal year, the key themes here are reside in expression, in communication, in creativity, socializing, enjoyment. This is earmarked as a fun social year, and it's often called the year of self-improvement. And yet what I want to really emphasize here is, to me, it's not so much self-improvement as it's revealing your authentic self. So it's one of those years where you are going to be revealing more of who you really are. And it's kind of like power washing whatever gook has been covering that up. So it's self-improvement, and that is usually going to be centered around communication and on tapping into your creative mojo. So anything that you can really express creatively is absolutely highlighted this year. If you are a creative, if you're an actor, a writer, a musician, if you're wanting to write your book, get your class online, do those things. This is the year to do it, to create the content, okay? Next year for you is going to be implementation, and yet this is the year to do it, to get it in line, to create the content, to get the book ready, to get all of that done. It's a year where if you aren't a creative in that way, to put, I always say that the mantra for the 3 is, when you're laughing, you're learning. So anything that you can infuse that lighter sense, that creative buoyancy, the fun, will really allow you for much more success and better results that way. So it's really a time where you're going to find your voice, give yourself permission to create, and to hopefully enjoy yourself. It's earmarked for travel if you can. It's pleasure across the board. Where do you find enjoyment? And it's one of those times where it's like, if you've always wanted to take flute lessons and just keep putting it off, take flute lessons, hip hop dance, go take a pottery class, whatever it is that you've been really kind of, yeah, that would be fun. That kind of sounds cool. Go do it. This is a time where it's really, really conducive for that. All right, if you are experiencing a 4 personal year, the key themes here are concerted effort. That's an understatement, all of you heading into your 4. Goals, having clearly defined goals in front of you. This is a time to be building foundations, securing foundations, or looking at your foundations and seeing where they, if they are something you want to build on, or if they have mutated, crumbled, or if they are unstable and you want to re-pour those foundations, one way or the other. This is often a time I find where family stuff comes up. And that can happen in any year, obviously, and yet the 4 personal year oftentimes brings up stuff. And I'm not saying this in a bad way at all. Actually, it brings things up to be dealt with differently, to make a monumental change in the way that certain family dynamics are playing out. And this is a time, again, of implementation. So if you are someone who did write your book in your 3 personal year, did some other creative things, could we have everyone muting? I think I'm hearing something going on. If we could mute everyone. Thank you so much. So the personal year here for you is really about working hard, and it is a number of hard work. So it is going to introduce you to a few limiting circumstances along the way, but do not let them detour you, okay? They're meant to kind of loosen you up in terms of making sure, it's like the universe saying, you sure you want that? Okay, well, all right, let's see how bad you want it. And you get to work through those things, and often working through the limitations gets you to a better solution than you thought you could get to, if that makes sense. So that's going to come into play. This is really a year where you are investigating what you're like. The question is, what are my longer range goals, and how can I lock them down? How can I get them in place? It's a time to get organized, set those, again, foundations that make your life easier, satisfying, and productive as you move into the next year, which is going to be when you establish this, you get some freedom. But right now, you get to set that up so that you have the freedom to move around a little bit. So this can be a very, very powerful time to get things in motion. People actually love this year because it's full of accomplishment, full of results. And at the end of the year, you're kind of looking back going, holy cow, look at look at all that transpired this year, what I've gotten into place. So it's really focused on practicality, management, needs some perseverance. So of course, the flip side here can be you feeling overwhelmed or exasperated. One of the things that I really want to encourage you during a 4 personal year is to, honest to God, and I mean this so sincerely, you have to put self-care into your calendar. So in a 4 personal year, you're like, I'll go to get the massage, or I'll take a day off, or whatever, when my punch list is over. Well, no, it's never going to be over. So you have to put yourself in your punch list, literally, because it's also the number of health, and not in a scary health, crisis way. It is the number of needing proper care and maintenance, needing to pay attention to proper healthcare regime. So it's just, be extra mindful of your food, get some good exercise. And the biggest thing is relaxation. What truly relaxes you, and you've got to really commit to yourself to put that into your calendar during a 4 personal year. So if you are in that 22 4 personal year, just like with that 11, you're going to double up on the 2. Think about the 2: slower, diplomacy, relationships, heightened sense of intuition and sensitivity, all of that. And then you plop the 4 right underneath there, which is all about practical, pragmatic, hard work, concerted effort, kind of putting the emotions over to the side because there's too much work to be done. So it's an interesting dynamic that you get with the 22 4 personal year. And yet it is about harder work, those longer range goals. And yet the kicker here to keep in mind is that it really is a time for spiritual focus and advancement on whatever level that comes into play for you. That can be in your personal life, in your personal world, or it can be in what you're working on. Maybe your career, your business idea, whatever it is that you're doing right now, you want to move into the bigger playing field, and it has a helping, healing, spiritually based focus. Very, very supportive of that enterprise this year. So it is, what am I building that has long range potential and is more reflective of my true spiritual mission? This is a big one for people right now, I'm finding, in 2022 and in the past couple of years. Abandoning jobs, the great resignation, right? What am I really here for? I think people are asking that question very, very distinctly right now. So if you're in a 22 4 personal year, this is going to really be right up in your grill, and in a good way offers you the energy to really, really make something that has lasting value that will continue and carry forward for years to come. All right, so now if you are in a 5 personal year, the key themes here are, after that arduous and hardworking 4, you've earned a little time off, hopefully. So the key themes here are fun, sex, travel, facing your fears, freedom, change. All of those very gregarious, versatile energies are coming into play. We're just leaving a 5 universal year in 2021, that kind of roller coaster. I always call it, I was envisioning it more like, has anyone ever gone to the gym or know anything about a workout tool? It's a vibrating plate. It's a thing. If you don't know it exists, but it's this vibrating platform, and you stand on it and you exercise on it, and ages your core in a very profound way. So it's, while you feel like everything is vibrating, you're actually building strength in your core. And I envision the 5 personal year to be very much like that. You've got all this stuff going on, and yet you've got to keep coming back to your core and to make use of it, right? It's the 5 is freedom through self-discipline, the constructive use of freedom. So this is a year where you're asking yourself really up close and personal, what does freedom look and feel like to me, and how do I create more of it? So maybe you're coming into this year where you need more financial freedom. That's going to be a focus. Maybe your health is suffering right now, and you need some to gain some more freedom back in the area of health. That will be a focus point. Maybe it's relationships and your emotional health. That's going to come into play. Maybe it can be spiritually based in that way. So I just don't want you to think that freedom just means running around, right? And doing whatever you want, however you want. It can be a very focused level of, how do I gain these freedoms? And usually it means by doing something that requires some discipline in order to get to the freedom part, right? And so this year, though, is you're exploring you're facing fears, you're open and receptive to change, because I'll guarantee you, if you're in the flow, you and I will talk at the end of the year and you'll go, holy cow, if you told me ago, 10 months ago, that this would be what I'd be doing, or where I am, or what my relationship is, or what you're like, I would have laughed you off the planet. So I know people even this year who in their 5 personal year, monumental changes at the end of the year. So it's very much ultimately about change. So it's really about your year of saying yes, being open to possibility. And because we're always working with the opposing forces, I find very much so in a 5 personal year, it's where we're dealing with our fear and with where we feel restricted. So it can be a year where, rather than feeling all this gregarious, fun-loving, going out and traveling and experiencing and all of those things, it's more about feeling hemmed in, tied down, restricted. And so attempting to move your way, massage your way out of those feelings can often come into play in a 5 personal year. So if you are in a six personal year, the key themes here are responsibility, home, family, relationships, self-sacrifice. There's a little bit of that goes with the 6 personal year. And it's also focused on service. And I also want to just mention that we are in a 6 universal year. So globally, we've got this energy going on. And then you personally, if this is your personal year, so you're in, so you've already got this going on universally, and now you also have it in your personal world. So just remember that you're kind of getting double indemnity here, in the positives and in the challenges that go with that. So what are those positives and what are those challenges for the 6? This is a relationship evaluation year, in my opinion, plain and simple. And of course, there's nothing plain or simple about it. And yet it's overall a time where you are looking at, should I stay or should I go? Or should it stay or should it go? And this, not to be too corny, but I really mean this, it really starts with self-evaluation. And oftentimes it's like, okay, who am I now? Right? I'm 6 years into this personal year cycle. I started something 6 years ago, but how am I progressing? What's going on? Who am I maturing into? And often this is a time where you do a deep sense of, who am I? What do I want? And where am I going? And often the who am I is really, who am I? Because the 6 is really putting a spotlight on where you may give yourself away, maybe where you overgive, maybe where you're too responsible. So it's going to highlight some of those areas in life. And this really, the goal here is to get serious about how you love. This is a key feature, a key theme. How do I love? And how do I want to be loved? And how is that showing up in my relationship dynamics? Not only in my relationship with me, and my relationship with my significant other, if I am in a significant partnership, and then it goes from there to children, to family, to colleagues, to friends. It is that kind of concentric circle that goes out into all of the relationships. It's often a time where relationships, if I always say that this is a year where often organically you will ask yourself, you know what, I have this friend and I just, oh my gosh, I'm just drained every time I am with him or her. And I just think I have to kind of back off from this relationship, not totally abandon it maybe, but just not engage as much with this person because I'm not getting a lot out of it. I'm feeling very just drained emotionally and everything else when I'm with this person. I often feel like this is a year where you investigate, whether you know it or not, people in your life. It's like, and you ask yourself, with this person, how do I feel before I'm, having a conversation with them or engage with them while I'm with them, and then afterwards. And if it's not something that is feeding you, that's challenging you and supporting you in a good way to be your best self, however you want to put that, it's probably a person who you're going to want to kind of, I don't know, step back from. So this is also a time of, in numerology, the 6 is called the marriage and divorce energy. Please don't let that scare you, because I know that everyone's like, running, screaming from the room. And yet truly it's a time in terms of marriage and divorce. It's the energies. It's of, if you're in a significant partnership, let's say you're married and you've been married for a long time, this is a time where you recommit, where you up level it in terms of, date night kind of went the wayside in the past year. Let's recommit to date night. Let's read a book together. Let's go do another activity, where you're strengthening that relationship. Potentially it's a year where if you are single and want to be in a relationship, it's where a relationship meets up with you. And I'm hearing something also. I'm sorry, pardon me, but could we mute everyone? If that's okay, I just want everyone to be able to hear. There we go. Thank you so much. So this is, again, going to be centered around your relationship dynamics, either up-leveling them, recommitting, feeling better with them, all of that, or really looking at the relationships that aren't working. This could be a marriage. If you're not happy with your marriage, you come to the table with that hard conversation, or maybe you've been having hard conversations, and this is the time for marriage counseling, or to separate, or to do that sort of thing. So this is often a peak time for relationship issues to come into play. The 7 personal year. So the 7 personal year, the key themes here. So since you're just leaving that 6 personal year, all about relationships, the evaluation there. Also, I want to say the 6 personal year is very dynamic for career, especially if it is service related. And just a little sidebar as we leave the 6, because you're moving your 6, from your 6 into your 7. The 6 was more responsibility all the way around. That can also come into play, again, not as a bad thing, just as a time where you actually enjoy more time with friends and family, or maybe there's a graduation, maybe a marriage, maybe, something else that you're being asked to participate in just a little bit more than usual in a 6. So as you leave that 6 where you feel like, it's been all about everybody else and making sure everyone else is okay, the 7 personal year is about you. And so it is an introspective year. It's a year that's very, very supportive and earmarked for soul searching. It's a planning time, a learning time. It's about a retreat, basically rest. So it's retreating into yourself. Often, for those of you who are in your 7, you already feel it. You already feel this lower energy. It's like it's low, it's slower and lower. You almost feel a little bit less energetic, a little more tired, like you want to kind of hang out and read a book rather than go out gallivanting around. So it is one of those years that calls for this internal soul seeking and introspection. And it's time for organizing and learning and a gradual spiritual growth time. But it's whenever again, anyone who reads my forecast, if you've been through a 7 personal year, it even gets lofty and to even talk about it, because it is this deep soul exposing time where you do some shadow work in the best possible sense, where you're really peeling the onion, looking down deep, really exploring yourself on a very deep level that I can only describe as almost like DNA changing. And yet it is deep, percolative. It's something that you can't even verbalize to anybody else. So, and when you try, it's so deep and profound that what's going on inside, and to talk about it just trivializes it in some ways. So expect to just have a year where the big question here is, will the real me please stand up? And you get to really take a look at that and to look below the surface. And this is a numerologically speaking, it is a pause. It is a time, if you, for instance, are really wanting to go out of the chute in your 7th personal year, new business, building it, into this exponential growth and move with it, you're going to, I dare say, be frustrated and disappointed because the energy of the year isn't supportive of focusing fully on material gain. Now, don't misunderstand me. Life goes on around you and you will still be doing your job. You'll still be doing all those things, but the main focus is not on building it. You can sustain it, and yet it's not on building it. It's on gathering the knowledge. It's on learning more. It's about, even in terms of what you want to do with your business and how you want to do that. And then there's the personal growth aspect of it. Intuition is greatly enhanced this year if you slow down enough to listen and pay attention and begin to get more friendly with your own intuitive language, right? How that shows up for you. This is a real year where it demands that you trust in right timing. So it is going to challenge you with that. All right, then after that 7, after that navel gazing that you get to go through, again, profound internal growth that goes with that 7. Then you move into the 8. Once again, we're kind of starting, we're right where I kind of started in this 3-year transition cycle, 3-year push time. This is the beginning. You're ramping up. Okay. The 8 is all about money, all about finances, looking at your financial picture, getting real about it, taking yourself seriously. It's about power and empowerment. You're going to be hit with asteroids from all sides of the fence in terms of testing you to step up and step into yourself in every way. It is also numerologically the reap as you've sown year. So if you've been diligently working on what you've been working on, and with a very clear focus and all of that, this is a year where you gain recognition, where you gain advancement in those areas of your life. Now understand that it won't come easy breezy. It's not like it's going to fall out of the sky with the sparkles and unicorns and fall into your lap. If it does, I want to know about that, okay? Because the 8 is usually more about making it happen, following through, following up, sticking with it. It's really about that endurance factor. I always say the 8 is like cosmic boot camp, right? And it's giving you, it's because the 8, it's the number of infinity, right? It actually is that constant flow of energy and flow of prosperity and flow of abundance. It's also the number of divine feminine, actually. So when you're really keying into that, it is a very powerful energetic force field that can't be stopped. And the key is to empower yourself on every level and do this with the utmost ethics, integrity, and with a higher functionality in terms of, and what I mean by that is that if it's only for material gain, only for your own benefit, all of that, the 8 can kind of get a little wonky on you because it's really asking you to do well financially, empower yourself, and yet do it for the greater good, right? Overall. So yet overall, this is a time where your power cannot be underestimated. Your influence this time is really heightening. It's a time where you can feel more confident and much more business business-like. It's almost like you get to really deal with everything in your life in a very business-like way. So there can be ups and downs all around. There can be issues with money, okay? So it's not necessarily a magical money time. It can be losses, it can be gains, and yet mostly it is meant for the gain. So it's actually giving you a little intensity, a little pressure around it, and yet there are grand opportunities to be had here. So the 8 is a very power centric year, and a year to really make leaps and strides with business and with your reputation and with your authority. You know, you can really become an authority in your field in whatever way during an 8 personal year. So now we get to the conclusion of our 9-year cycle. This is the 9 personal year. It is the end, right? The end of a cycle. So I really love to look at this year as a commencement, right? You are commencing. If you even think about it, a commencement ceremony is when you're walking across the stage, you're getting your diploma, they're shaking your hand, they're saying, hey, job well done, you passed. And you walk off, and then you know, as you're leaving, you're beginning something, but you don't usually know what you're moving into next as you walk off that graduation stage, right? You're like, okay, now what? So it's taking you into the now what, and yet it's all about conclusions. It's transformation. This is a time where dreams can come true, truly and honestly, when you're giving to others. The 9 is that humanitarian compassion energy. So when you're keying into that, it's very, very conducive for the positives for you this year. And it can be very emotional, right? Because even if you think about it, if you go through that last semester of college, you still have to show up to class, you still have to take finals, you're still meeting all your friends on Friday night and doing that. But you know that after graduation, all of that will disperse, right? And it would be weird if it didn't. If you stayed in college all your life, that would just not be okay, right? So you have to think about it that way, that this is a cycle of time that is now concluded, and now you're moving into a new dynamic you and period in your life. So the question here is, how can I let go of everything that I no longer need in order to make room for positive changes? And so it's really going to be a time where often things happen to you, you know, and you engage in things that, again, fall away. Maybe it's a time where I don't know, you lose a job, but it will open you up to a better job that's next. But in the meantime, it's scary, right? So there's the fear factor that can come into play when things dissolve, or when things move around, or when things are disappear or taken away. And yet overall, to really come to terms with the beauty of the impermanence. And I think every one of us can testify to the fact that uncertainty is the new certainty at this point in the world. So in your 9 personal year, you really get to practice that and really embrace it and make the most out of it, because it's incredibly powerful when you can do that, when you can lean in and go with that flow and welcome the new with open arms, even when it's not clear what that is going to be. Because that's the biggest thing about the 9. I often say that the 9 is metaphorically and sometimes literally, depends on, I've known people who have experienced this, where metaphorically the 9 personal year is like this. So have you known people who are in a marriage or in a relationship and they're unhappy and they want to get out of it, but they won't leave the relationship until they have another romantic partner waiting in the wings, right? Just to kind of move them right in and fill that space immediately. Well, the 9 personal year will not allow that to happen. It demands that you get the divorce, and I'm saying this not literally. It could be literally, but metaphorically, to leave the relationship, get the divorce, leave the job, do whatever it is that you know you don't want anymore, and that is not a positive element in your life. And yet you have to kind of hang out in that liminal space for a moment without knowing what's coming in, to kind of recalibrate and resituate before you can have the opening for the next phase and stage to come in. So this is a great year for just getting, for doing that kind of selfless service, giving yourself some self-compassion. It's a year of forgiveness as well, self and others. And it's a huge, amazing, fabulous year that is getting you ready for a brand new phase and stage in life. So, all right, before we go into questions, and we've got 10 minutes left for questions, I am going to alert you and let you know, because I'm super excited actually, that to please go over to FeliciaBender.com and join the pre-launch party. I've got my new book, The Ultimate Guide to Practical Numerology, Mapping Your Path and Purpose. That is going to be released in early 2022. We're still pegging the exact launch date down, and yet if you want to it's a free, just sign up with your email and you get a free bonus when you sign in to be alerted as to when the launch will actually, when the book will actually, the moment that it's available. So that is something that I would love for you to join us and join that pre-launch party and know exactly when the book is going to be available to you. So with that said, Randy, I'm going to hand it to you and see what questions might come into play about the personal year cycle.
Absolutely. So if anyone has any questions, just drop them in the chat and we will get to as many of them during our time left. And sorry about the slides, we will send them to you with the recording so you can go back through the replay and have the slides in front of you and review them if you wish. So go ahead and type in your question in the chat and we will jump into questions. So Felicia, Claire has a question. How do I use the personal year 2 in a 6-year?
Okay, personal year 2 in a 6-year. Well, the interesting thing here is that if you look at 2022, right, we're already in a pool of 2s. And the lovely part of that is that the 2 and the 6 are very simpatico, right? They're both relationship oriented. They're both basically kind of home and family numbers. So if you're in a 2 in this 6 universal year, it's really powerful. The power points here are in love and relationships. It's a very, very supportive year of developing and continuing to create those lovey-dovey romantic relationships, but also very much into, I know people in their 2 personal year already who are really delving into new and revised family of origin dynamics, dynamics with siblings, dynamics with friends, a lot of friendship woibles that have been going on in the past couple of years, right? So that can be something that comes into play. So when you're in a 6 universal year, I would, and a 2 personal year, I would think the caveats or the things that that might be at issue is oversensitivity, right? Feeling way overly sensitive. And I think that it's time really, well, you'll be offered opportunities to what I call discipline your emotions, right? To really come to terms with disciplining your emotions. I would say this year, honest to goodness, if everyone could get the 1 chapter from Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, and read the one on don't take things personally. I asked my 2 life paths to always keep that one on their mirror, right? And yet to remind them of that every day. So it's about that, and it's going to be really, really important with that 6 universal year and the 2 to step back from the taking things personally, and then it folds into being judgmental. Like I think both of those energies are that energy when it slides over into the bossy part, where it's like, all right, this is my belief system. It's the right way, and you're wrong. And you need to do what I tell you to do for your own good, right? It has that, for that kind of parenting, finger wagging for your own good sort of way about it. So really just have an, just keep that in the back of your mind and go, oh, when am I for your own gooding people? And maybe I could back off from that just a little bit. But the 6th universal year to personal year, you just are swimming in this beautiful pool of love and relationships, and yet you're going to be counted on more so than others to hold a container for people during this time. So I hope that answers that question.
That was a beautiful explanation.
Thank you.
It looks like, let's go for 2 more questions. I think we have quick time for 2 more questions. So we're going to go to Tiffany and then Lauren. Tiffany says, I'm in a 9-year, but a bit afraid of the new that might be ahead and require me to leave things behind. It is important to be dynamic in a year 9 and embrace the change. Any advice?
Yeah, I guess. Yes. I get so many people, clients who are like really scared. I mean, really scared about the 9. So what I want to do is step back and really hold it with you and for you. Because while the 9 can feel intense and emotional, it really is, it's kind of like thinking about the sadness that comes from leaving a job and, quitting a job and moving to, you've gotten this bigger, better job. You've gotten with a company that you like even better, and your salary is great, and you're moving your geography, and you're at this party, right, where all your colleagues that you've worked with for however long, and you're having this party. There's a bittersweetness to it. And yet you are moving into something much more in alignment with you. And it's just walking through those emotions, walking through the goodbyes. And when you say goodbye to some colleagues, yeah, you probably won't be engaged with, in contact with most of them, but there'll be a couple that you are. So it's not asking you, the 9 personal year is not asking you to give up everything. Okay, I think that's what we also have to understand. It's not asking you to just, throw everything away and start absolutely fresh. It's just going to ask you to bump away a few of those things that are expired, that just, it's like throwing something out of your refrigerator that's the expiration date, there's kind of mold growing in there. You're like, yeah, I need to get rid of this. So if we can think about it that way, and lean into that and appreciate that. And again, I don't want to be corny at all. And yet the attitude of gratitude is really, really important in a 9 year and forgiveness of yourself, because it's often a time where you're reflecting and reviewing things from the past, right? And often we can beat ourselves up when that is going on. It's not the beat me up year. It's more of the forgiveness, of the letting go, and of moving into the next thing. So, but what I would say to give you heart and soul here is that it's not going to just demand everything be let go of. There are just a few things that can move, and they can be more subtle as well. So I'm wishing you the best of the best of the best, but understand that at the end of the game, oh my gosh, you'll look back and go, oh, that was just the best timing for that ever. And those are things, when you have that reflective surface, that you can look back and see how powerful it was to move through it. I hope that helps. Hope that makes you feel better.
I'm sure it does.
Okay.
We all go through that.
Yes.
Okay, the last question, and then I think we'll wrap up, and then you can share anything that you want to before we close out. So Lauren's question is, 2022 is both my 7 life path and personal year. What does that mean? Obviously, I think she's referring to, what does that mean with the 6 universal year?
Oh, well, I think, unless I'm wrong, I think what she's saying is that you have a 7 life path and a 7 personal year. And so you're doubling up, right? And though I always do talk about that when we talk a little bit more deeply about the personal year cycle, because very much so, if you are duplicating your personal year, that is your life path, you're getting double, right? Or you're getting really an incredible playing field. And the way that I look at it is this, is that a 7 in a 7 personal year, or any number in life path number in their duplicate personal year, you're really going to get a deep, deep level of opportunities and of lessons and of all of the things that are in alignment truly with the thematic of in your case, the 7. So the 7 and a 7, deep, deep dive in terms of where you are spiritually. So it is going to be this absolutely eureka time for you. And what I mean by that is you will be offered it all. It will be right up in your grill, whatever triggers, whatever weak links, whatever of those. And then also the positives that you are, operating within your personal year and your life path number is going to be intensified. So how might that show up? So if you're a 7, you're already this data seeker, you're already a little bit on the different wavelength, right? Maybe there are things going on internally right now that we've been in this very transitional energetic space. For those of you who are astrologically inclined, you'll also understand that we are going through massive shifts, energetically speaking, and it's how we're aligning with those. And yet, even those on the highest level, I just want to say this, even though, even the gurus are still experiencing this. They're still experiencing grief. They're still experiencing challenges and changes and dips of identity and all of that. So as a 7, you're really going to be doing your 7 personal year in the most profound way. And this can break open some elements of your identity in terms of your spiritual life. It can show up with some shadow work, right? Great year for energy work, great year for therapy, great year for anything that is going to attune you even more so to your spiritual, to your intuitive capabilities. I don't know where you are on that level as a 7. So if you're a 7 who's even new to that and you're like, I don't, no, not me. This might be the year where it becomes you, where you really dive into that. And that usually comes with a challenge, right? A health issue that makes you go off and heal yourself in some way, so that you can move that into place. Or it's just a curiosity. I'm curious about conscious breathing, or numerology stuff is really tweaking me. Let me learn more about that. Those sorts of things are really going to be intensified for you during a 7 personal year. And once again, for all of you, if you are in the same personal year as your life path number, the same, you can apply it in the same way.
Awesome. Okay, so before we let everyone go and before I hand it back over to you, Felicia, to cover anything that we want to before we wrap up, if you want to join the pre-launch party, go to FeliciaBender.com. I've put the link in a couple of places in the chat. Get on the book pre-launch list. We'll send you freebies and special treats, and you will receive advance notice of Felicia's book release announcement, so you can have first shot at it. Anyway, go to FeliciaBender.com for more information, and thanks everyone for being here. Okay, Felicia, it's all you.
Oh, it's all me. I just want to thank everyone for being here. We're going to continue this free webinar series throughout the year. So every month there'll be something new coming at you. And I'm super excited about this book, and I really want to bring this out as soon as possible, because I think all of us are really wanting and needing this information right now, whether it's numerology or any other modality that is really helping us align with our path and purpose right now. So I just want to thank you for being part of this community. I can't really express in words how much I appreciate you and how much I love doing these things with you. So anything that you want to see, hear, or do, go ahead and email support@FeliciaBender.com, support@FeliciaBender.com. And we will, we'll take that in under advisement and into consideration as we continue to do these webinars. So tell us what you'd like to have a webinar on, and we'll see what we can do to do that with you and for you. So thank you again for being here, and we'll see you next time.